Hello, everybody. Welcome to our edition of the 2022 NFL mock draft. It's draft day eve, I guess you can say, Alec. Not technically a holiday. No one's off from school. But
Should be.
nevertheless, it should be. I know. But nevertheless, we are here to give our picks. Me and Alec, we've been doing it for quite some time. Doing these either live or pre-recorded mock drafts. I remember when we were like 13, 14 years old, like just writing them on pieces of paper and doing stuff like that too, Alec. But
Oh, yeah.
interesting draft. It's going to be in Vegas. Wish I could have been on site for it. That would have been a nice place to go to, but we're here in Suffolk County, Long Island, doing it remotely, virtually, if you will. If you have any questions, be sure to ask them because we'll be more than happy to ask them answer them, I should say, as we go. Alec, quickly, just tell the people how you've been and some of the top storylines we have entering this draft.
Yeah, man, this is a crazy one, and it should be a national holiday, getting all these days off, because you know that when we were 10, 11 years old, we were staying up till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning to finish out this draft and then getting up to go to school the next day. But this is a really exciting draft because I think it's one of the more unpredictable ones we've had. It's deep in the sense of usually we have around 600, 700 draft eligible players that enter, whereas this year we have almost triple that because of the COVID years of eligibility. But that being said, most people find that the top of this draft is consensusly worse than the last couple of years. We don't have that top quarterback prospect. We've got some really good edge rushers in this class and some edge rushers that'll go high, but we don't have a ton of the blue chip prospects, I guess, that we normally would have. So it's an exciting one. There could be some guys slipping because of positional value. There could be guys jumping up the board. We really don't know what's going to happen, but it's exciting. How you doing, Hunter?
Yeah, like you said, Alec, I think this is one of the more unpredictable drafts we had in a while, and there's no top quarterback. I think that's a big storyline. No one really knows which teams are actually going to take one or not, and which ones are just going to pass, and where these quarterbacks really go, because a lot of them aren't first-round candidates, but Alec, we know that there will be multiple first-round quarterbacks at the end of night one tomorrow. And I am also curious to see because there is no consensus number one guy. Even the first pick in the draft, it's not like, even if it's not a quarterback, it's not like this is the guy by far number one. And so that leads us into the first pick in the draft. The Jacksonville Jaguars find themselves here again after another disastrous season, to say the least. Alec,
Yeah.
you're going to be on the clock for this one. You'll take the odd picks. I'll take the even number picks. Who do you have Jacksonville going with here?
Listen, to the Jacksonville Jaguars fans out there, I know it looked bleak last year, but, changing of the tides a little bit. We've got Doug Peterson coming in here. I still believe Trevor Lawrence is as good as advertised when he came out. I'm not concerned about that. And I think that's part of the reason why we have so much uncertainty up here is that usually the top pick in the draft goes to a team that doesn't have a quarterback. Well, I think we're pretty set at our quarterback position. A lot of talk right now. Is it going to be Trayvon Walker, the absolute stud freak out of Georgia, the national champion, who probably played out of position slightly, what he'll do in the NFL? And if you just unleash what he can do, you're talking about a guy who could compete for 20 sacks a year. Or do you go hit one right into the gap with Aiden Hutchinson, get someone who's going to get 8 to 12 sacks a year, consistently be a leader and a focal point on that defense? For me, it's a culture change for Jacksonville. I'm not saying that Aiden Hutchinson's my top player on my board, but what we're doing here in Jacksonville is we are changing the tides. We're going to take Aiden Hutchinson here, who has been known to stick around. He stuck around at Michigan. He could have came out last year, even after the injury, and been a third-round pick at least. He is someone who stuck around, and look at what he was able to do at Michigan last year, a team that nobody predicted would make the college football playoff. Weren't even a top 25 team. He comes in, and he was unblockable, was doubled every single game. I think that, look, Aiden Hutchinson is not my number one edge rusher. He's not my number one player on my board. This is a predictive mock. But for me, looking into what Jacksonville has, I think it's going to be something where they are trying to change the culture and bring in the leader of that Michigan football team, Aiden Hutchinson?
Well, I think the thing that you hammered on the most, Alec, which is why you can argue Hutchinson for the number one pick. And what I do think the Jaguars need the most is a culture changer. Urban Meyer did not leave Jacksonville in a very good place. Doug Peterson, who is a Super Bowl champion, let's not forget that. I think that's definitely a huge upgrade there. And he's really good with quarterbacks. Hopefully for the Jaguars, they can see Trevor Lawrence really thrive and succeed under Peterson. But offensively, they did just re-sign Cam Robinson to an extension literally just a couple hours ago. And I think you and me both thought, well, maybe they go with a left tackle here, months back, and maybe an Evan Neal will be the first pick here. But they're committed to Robinson there. So, and they signed some guys in the offseason too. So it looks like it's going to be a defensive player most likely in Jacksonville. And I do disagree. I think it's going to be Travon Walker, although I am a little higher on Aiden Hutchinson, and I do think he's actually a better fit for Jacksonville. But I do think that's going to be a good pick. And the thing I love most about Hutchinson, Alec, and I don't know if you saw this too, was he played his best football in the biggest moments. He came up huge in the Big Ten conference game, championship game. He was good in the college football playoff, though Michigan kind of just got smacked by Georgia, but almost everybody else did. I can't really blame him. But Hutchinson definitely would be a good pick in Jacksonville. And while I think Walker is going to go 1 in this mock draft, I think he'll go number 2 to the Detroit Lions. Out of these 3 top edge rushers, Hutchinson, Walker, and of course, Kayvon Thibodeau, Travon Walker is the best athlete of the 3. Like, if you're looking at a guy who is just a pure freak of nature, that's Travon Walker. I think he ran almost under a 4.51, I think was what he's clocked in at the combine. Great size. And the biggest issue, it can be viewed as a strength or weakness, Alec, is what position does Travon Walker play? Is he a jack of all trades and a master of none? Or is he a guy who can legitimately play all over the line? Dan Campbell, he is also trying to establish a winning culture in Detroit, something that they've pretty much seen never, Alec. It seems like for the poor Lions. But Travon Walker is a winner. For what I'm heard, he's a great leader, too, in the locker room. Campbell needs a guy like that who's going to not only listen to his message, but spread it to the team as well in Travon Walker.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with Travon Walker. It's interesting to me how crazy this draft has changed up, and some people have had it this way from the start. But, for me, Kayvon Thibodeau is the best player in this draft, and Evan Neal is number 2, and we have gone through 2 picks, and neither of them come off the board, but it makes sense. Travon Walker is a Dan Campbell type of guy. And, yeah, the question is, where are you going to play him? I think that 7 technique that he'll play at in Detroit will be perfect. Whether he goes to Jacksonville or Detroit, I think either one would work out. But yeah, goes to Detroit here. He's a proven winner. Obviously did tremendous things with that Georgia defense. I'm coming up here with Houston. There's a lot of ways Houston can draft here. They can go in a lot of different directions because, let's be real, there's a lot of holes on this team. One thing that you can do is, hey, we looked at Davis Mills last year, and there was something to be excited about. I'm not saying he's the guy, but there's at least something there where you can say we feel confident in sticking with him. I'm going to take Ike Ekwonu, the offensive tackle out of NC State, to play the right tackle position. Again, Evan Neal is my number 1 tackle, but I think that this fits with what the Houston Texans want to do. Take Ike Ekwonu, who can pretty much play anywhere on that offensive line, but come in, play the right tackle spot on the other side of Laramie Tunsil. And I think that this solidifies one of the most important positions in football. It's easier to fill the guard positions and the center position later in the draft or through free agency. It's not easy to fill the tackle position. So you get yourself a tackle here. And if Davis Mills is the guy, well, now we've put tackles who can pass block and run block for you on both sides. Give him the keys for this season. It's not like there's a quarterback that makes sense at number 3 anyways. I think this makes the most sense for the Texans.
Well, even if Mills isn't the guy, you're going to build an offensive line for whoever steps in. I mean, look at what the Broncos did getting Russell Wilson. They already have a good offensive line. They have a defense. They have receivers, running backs. They just need the quarterback. So for the Texans, you're not close to winning. You got to build a roster, and they're going to have most likely 2 first-round picks unless a trade happens. They trade out of the first or some crazy thing. They're going to have 2 first-round picks to get talented players. So go get those guys. I love Ike Ekwonu. I don't think he's a guy who I just can't see him being bad in the league. Like maybe he doesn't reach amazing perennial Pro Bowl status, but he's going to be a really good player, and he's a dog. The dude plays with tenacity and a mean streak, and I love that in my offensive lineman. But looking at the Jets here, they're going to be taking number 4, Kayvon Thibodeau, an edge rusher from Oregon. Your number 1 player, Alec. I've heard rumors too that the Jets really like him there at 4. And I think it'd be a good fit because they could use a really good edge rusher from a raw natural talent standpoint. Perhaps he is the best edge rusher in this class. There's concerns that he maybe has some character issues. He's a little stiff in the hips too. I wish he had a little more bend to him, but he is a really good athlete, so he can get after the quarterback. Number 1 high school player coming out of the country too. Great 3 years there at the University of Oregon. Jets right now, they still have a lot of holes on this roster. They focused a lot on the offense last year, of course, taking Zach Wilson, taking Elijah Moore, Elijah Vera Tucker. But I think with this 4th pick out, they need to build the defense back up. And I think Kayvon Thibodeau getting an elite edge rusher potentially is a great way to start.
Yeah, I think Kayvon Thibodeau is unfortunately the victim here of boredom. With scouts, they are bored of hearing his name because they've heard it since he was a junior in high school. He has been that dominant. And even at Oregon, yes, there can be questions about did he give up on some plays? Did he, was he 100% every game? Is there a little bit of stiffness there potentially? But when you're talking about the pure freak of nature that Kayvon Thibodeau is, Trayvon Walker to me gives you, hey, if this guy hits, he's going to be a 20 sack a year type of guy, especially with the league eventually going to 18 regular season games. He could be a 20 sack a year type guy, but there's also risk. For me, Kayvon Thibodeau is the type of guy that he's going to be in that 14 to 15 sack a year range, which is an insane number because he's that good. He is dominant. He's not the Chase Young type prospect, but he is pretty close in my eyes, and I think he's just getting dropped here because of boredom. If the Jets want to sit here at 4 and scoop up Kayvon Thibodeau, makes a ton of sense. The other name I've heard there is Jermaine Johnson, who has skyrocketed, and rightfully so. He's a phenomenal player, but he has skyrocketed into the top 10. And I think Kayvon Thibodeau makes a ton of sense for the Jets, fits that Robert Saleh scheme. I'm up here with the New York Giants, and I think this one's a run to the board type of pick. The New York Giants at pick 5 are going to take one of the top 3 tackles. I can't see it going any other way unless the 3 tackles are off the board, which would be really, really shocking. But it's going to be Ike Ekwonu, Evan Neal, or Charles Cross. And Evan Neal, I think, fits exactly what they want to do. He's played 3 different positions at Alabama: right guard, right tackle, and left tackle, and dominated at all 3. Was the best tackle in football last year, or in college football last year. And I that's why I have him as the number 1 tackle on my board. If the Giants have Evan Neal getting here to this pick, obviously the fan base wants to fix the offensive line. I think they made some interesting signings and good signings on the interior of that offensive line. I think Evan Neal is the pick. You run up and you make it.
Yeah, Giants definitely still need offensive line, despite the fact that they keep drafting offensive linemen in the first round. But do whatever you got to do. Again, is Daniel Jones the guy? Is he not? I think this is not the year they draft a quarterback, Alec, unless they maybe take a flyer or day 2, day 3. But first round, don't think it's going to happen. Go get Evan Neal, really good player. One thing I will say, Alec, though, I think a big criticism on Neal, despite having SEC reps and competition facing that, he also is a freak athlete, Alec. I mean, you remember those combine photos? Everyone's like, that's an offensive lineman. Usually
doesn't look like it.
They're not that cut like that, but he is known to have a bit of slow feet. That's what a lot of scouts say. Do you think that that's a negative? Do you think he can improve on that? What's your take there?
I mean, slow feet's always a negative. I just don't see it with him. I think that there's a ton of quickness in his feet. I think there's a ton of quickness in his movements. A 6'7" guy who honestly looks, he's never made 360 pounds. No one has ever made 360 pounds look that good. I mean, Mekhi Becton is 360 pounds and Evan Neal is 360 pounds. And they look a lot different. I think you're talking about a guy who's just freaky. It's you put him in, you lock him in, especially at that right tackle spot. A lot of times teams use that right tackle position to kind of use that in their running game, get around the edge, and he's going to be able to get his hat around a lot of people. I think that Evan Neal is just a freak of nature that you need to solidify that right tackle spot. Well, here you go. And he's played it at a high level, obviously winning the national championship as a right tackle, slid over to the left tackle, lost to Georgia in the national championship game, but I don't necessarily think that was on him. A lot of great defenders for Georgia. So I'm not concerned with it. I understand people might be, but I'm not.
And again, if you're just tuning in, we just released our first 5 picks of our 2022 NFL mock draft. Aiden Hutchinson being first overall to Jacksonville, followed by Trevon Walker to the Lions, Ike Ekwonu to the Texans, Kayvon Thibodeau to the Jets, and then Evan Neal to the New York Giants. And of course, my lovely Carolina Panthers at 6, Alec. And I think they have the most interesting pick in the entire first round because no one really knows what the hell they're going to do. I don't have any idea. They could take a quarterback, they could trade back, or they could take an offensive lineman here. And the last tackle the Panthers took in the first round, Alec, do you know who it was?
It's got to be Jordan Gross, right?
One actually after that, Gross in 03. That's the one that hit. Jeff Oda in 2008 was the 19th pick in the draft. The reason you don't know him because he's one of the worst picks in Carolina Panthers history. He was god-awful, but Jordan Gross was obviously phenomenal for the Panthers. And I think they might go quarterback here. Owner David Tepper is, in fact, a booster for the University of Pitt. Matt Rule also has connections to Kenny Pickett, and this team is clearly desperate for a quarterback. But the logical side of me thinks they might try to trade back. But I think the best thing they have to do is stay in number 6 and take the remaining 3 of these offensive tackles. You alluded to Ike Ekwonu and Neal off the board already. So it's going to be Charles Cross for the Carolina Panthers. This team, they addressed the interior of the line this offseason, signing 3 dudes. They also re-signed Taylor Moton last offseason to play the right tackle spot. Go get a left tackle. I don't care if Sam Darnold's your guy. He's obviously not. But the quarterback class this year is suspect at best, Alec. It is not a very good quarterback class. I wouldn't mind Malik Willis here, but I also think that the Panthers aren't in a position to really develop Malik Willis into what he should be and giving him time to actually develop because he's not going to play behind an established quarterback there. It's going to be a legit competition. And the Panthers are on the clock. Like this team, Matt Rule, I don't think has another year if he's bad this year. He's had 2 straight 5-win seasons. He's probably out. Are they really going to rely on a rookie quarterback to get them to 8-9 wins? That's really risky, Alec. Go get an offensive tackle, trade for a Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo or any quarterback that comes available. They re-signed DJ Moore. Christian McCaffrey's there. The defense is already established. The biggest hole in this roster outside of quarterback is left tackle, and Charles Cross could fill that.
Yeah, and I think Charles Cross is a really good one. I do think he's number 3 out of these 3, but I still think that Charles Cross is a phenomenal player, worthy of a top 7-9 pick. He goes 6 here. I think that the Panthers will run up to the board if Charles Cross is sitting there. Charles Cross could end up being the second guy off the board. Maybe Evan Neal falls. It so adds to the unpredictability or unpredictability of this draft. The Panthers taking Charles Cross. Phenomenal pick for them. And the Giants come back up here. And I think this is where it really gets interesting because Malik Willis, do I think he's coming off the board yet? You know, obviously he hasn't come off the board yet, but do I think the Giants want to take Malik Willis? I don't know. But if you look at what the Giants do, they are, or what the Bills did, with Josh Allen, obviously the whole regime basically came over with Brian Daboll and Joe Shane. They developed a quarterback who had a lot of concerns, but the arm was just ridiculous. And that's Malik Willis. There was a lot of concerns about his game, but the arm there's no question about what he can do with a football. He can sling it. I don't think they take him, though. I think they go with the best corner on the board here, Ahmad Sauce Gardner, who was just absolutely dominant for Cincinnati last year. I mean, no question about it. They do not get to that fourth spot in the playoff if it's not for Ahmad Sauce Gardner. And he gets drafted here. they are able to then move on from James Bradberry, who I think is a phenomenal player. Obviously, the contract just doesn't fit there. It allows them to go a little bit more man-to-man, whereas they were kind of reliant on a little more zone with James Bradberry. I mean, that you're talking about putting an island out there, and I think Ahmad Sauce Gardner will give you that opportunity to be able to just put him on the top receiver and say, go get him. The biggest concern Ahmad Sauce Gardner had in his game was, hey, does he have the long speed to keep up? And then he shut down Jameson Williams in the playoff. I think that, and that's my number one receiver too, if he doesn't get injured, is Jameson Williams. So I think that Sauce should not fall past 7. And I think the Giants will scoop him here. Obviously, the concern, hey, where's the edge rusher, right? They didn't get the edge rusher. There's about 20 edge rushers in this class that can really be a starter in this league. I mean, this is a phenomenal class. I think, you grab the top corner on the board, and then you come back around in the second round and you look for that edge rusher. But I don't think there's a rush right now, especially with Thibodeau, Walker, and Hutchinson off the board.
And Sauce Gardner, Alec, is one of my favorite players in this draft. I love watching him play. Nick Saban, the ultimate respect that Sauce Gardner got was when Nick Saban said, I schemed to throw it away from him. He goes, I'm not throwing it towards Sauce Gardner's way. Like, that's when you know you're that dude, when the greatest college football coach of all time is avoiding you on the field. And he really held his own against Jameson Williams and Bryce Young there. But even just that one game alone, like, Sauce Gardner was dominant all season long.
Right.
And I love his attitude. Everything about him, to me, suggests that this dude's going to be one of the best corners in the league in a few years. I really think that. And then moving on to the Atlanta Falcons, also one of my favorite players in the draft. Love watching him in a sense because he did play for Ohio State and cooked Penn State quite a bit. And that's going to be Garrett Wilson, the first wide receiver off the board. A lot of questions surrounding Calvin Ridley. He's essentially going to miss 2 straight seasons. Even regardless, that wide receiver room outside of Calvin Ridley might be the worst in football. They got Kyle Pitts, who is kind of a wide receiver, but a tight end, of course, and I'm sure he'll be phenomenal next season. But Marcus Mariota or whoever's going to be the quarterback of the Falcons moving forward needs help. And Garrett Wilson, this dude's got a PhD in route running, can run any route in the book, faster than people even think. Reminds me a lot of Stephon Diggs coming out. Will he be that good? We'll see. But Garrett Wilson can do just about everything on the field. And I think any team in the top 10, or maybe he slips, who knows, I think will be very happy with the production that Garrett Wilson can bring to them.
Listen, I think Garrett Wilson's draft starts at pick 3. I think realistically, the Texans could sit there at pick 3 and take Garrett Wilson, and I don't think it's crazy because this kid's talent is insane. Another player, just like Kayvon Thibodeau, who is getting brought down the board, I think because of boredom. He's been so good since his freshman year. We were talking about this kid. Oh, hey, he's going to be a top 5 pick. And I don't see him falling too much later than 8 at least. I mean, 13 is probably where his draft ends. I can't see him getting past the Texans at 13.
I don't think it's past like even Washington or the Jets there at 10,
right.
11. Like,
I don't think he should. He is phenomenal. And if obviously, look, if Jameson Williams doesn't get hurt, he's my number 1. But 1B is Garrett Wilson. They are not far away on my rankings. I think that Garrett Wilson is a slam dunk pick there for Atlanta. Coming up with Seattle here, going with what I'm hearing, not what I'm thinking, but that's no disrespect to what this player is, and that's Jordan Davis from Georgia. First of all, we talk about what Trayvon Walker did at the Combine. How about what Jordan Davis did at 360 pounds running a 4.84? That's like
wild.
That's all honestly as impressive as someone running a 4.2, if not more. Because a receiver,
I wonder what you convert that to. You know what I mean? Like, what's the conversion chart? Yeah.
It's insane. People at Georgia had said that they had clocked Jordan Davis running 20 miles an hour, and I called bull crap on that. I don't know. After watching that, I think they might be right. And look, and the biggest question with Jordan Davis is he only played 40% of snaps, right? It's not that he wasn't asked to play more. It was that he didn't need to because they had such dominant players on the interior. There is no need to waste Jordan Davis. Put him in big time moments. You don't need to waste him when you have such great players there. I think Jordan Davis could find himself picked here. And this is for Seattle to just plug someone in on the middle of that defense, stop the run, and just not have to worry about it. Seattle tried to get or tried to make it work with Snacks Harrison late in his career. Well, this kid, young, is going to be able to just jump in and do that role with Seattle. I think that this is not the pick I would necessarily make, but not the wrong pick for Seattle.
I think Seahawks' biggest needs off top is probably an offensive lineman. Maybe they try trading up to get one, or even cornerback. Stingley could be in the mix. Garner's already gone. I don't think he'll make it to 9. But Jordan Davis, if we're talking about storylines, Alec, I think he's got one of the most interesting ones in this first round because he can go top 10. He might go end of the first round. Teams are probably all over the board of what Jordan Davis can become. But even in those short sample size, I love the point you made. Look, Georgia had 8, 9 guys that can get to the quarterback. Every team wants 8, 9 pass rushers, ideally on the line. So you can't blame him for only playing as much as he did. Maybe he could, lose a couple pounds and be more durable, but the dude's extremely talented. I don't think there's any denying there. And coming up, rounding out the top 10 of this mock draft, you talk about talent, Alec. I think this is where Kyle Hamilton goes to the New York Jets. Yeah. They need secondary help in general. Now, they have this pick because they traded Jamal Adams and they still need a safety now. Go get Kyle Hamilton, who might have an even higher ceiling than Jamal Adams, who's a all-pro type of safety, different safety, but his physical traits. And I know it's a deep safety class, and safety is never a huge need for teams, but when you're looking at a guy like Kyle Hamilton, who you can argue is the most talented player in this entire draft, and you can get him at pick 10, what a steal for the Jets this could be. He's a real difference maker, can play all over the field. Got better and better as he progressed throughout Notre Dame. Got a lot of heart in him, too. He plays really hard. And the Jets, of course, with Robert Saleh there, they're like, yeah, great. We drafted a lot of our offensive guys. They're in the mix for Deebo Samuel, too. So maybe some of these picks that the Jets have get moved. But if they're sitting there at 10 and Kyle Hamilton's still on the board, I don't know how you don't take him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's upsetting because if Kyle Hamilton runs a 4.5 at his pro day and runs a 4.5 at the combine, then he's probably a top 5 pick, but it comes back at a 4.7. I don't see that on film. I don't see a 4.7 player, but Kyle Hamilton, to me, I don't even want to put him down as a safety. I want to put him down as an eraser. He is a matchup eraser. You can put him on a corner. You can put him out at corner and on a wide receiver if you need to. If you feel like you need to get him there, he's such great coverage ability. He has such great strength that you could bring him down into the box. He's got such great awareness that you could play him in zone. I don't think you can play him as single high, but that's the only thing at the position he can't do. He's not your typical safety where he is just a playmaker on the field. And I think this is a steal for the Jets. They come away with this draft, drafting Kayvon Thibodeau and Kyle Hamilton. Obviously, they're going to be pretty happy with what they've got. Coming up here for the Washington Commanders, this is not necessarily. Again, I keep saying this. It's not the picks that I'm ready to turn in myself, but I think it makes sense as to what they have on their team already. Look, they've got Terry McLaurin, who's obviously a speed demon out there. They tried to get some speed last year. I think that you just go all out with Chris Olave here. This could be Jameson Williams, but I think Chris Olave makes a ton of sense. He's a great route runner, great speed threat. Put him on the other side of Terry McLaurin, and look, Carson Wentz is not a great option, but he does have a strong arm, and these guys are going to be able to get open and get down the field, and you're just going to make this a vertical offense. And I think that Chris Olave coming in gives you the options to do that. I think there's a tie to Terry McLaurin there. Chris Olave obviously was at Ohio State with Terry McLaurin. I think they'd cross over for like a year or two, but they were still there together. I think that there's a lot to like about the leadership and the production that Chris Olave had. And obviously there's a lot going on in Washington right now that is not all that pretty. Bring in the can't miss kind of guy character wise, and then also just tons of speed, tons of route running ability. I think Chris Olave does make sense here. Not my number one wide receiver left on the board, but it's not, my rankings are not always right. So I think Chris Olave makes a lot of sense here.
Well, I think Washington failed with their name change. It should have been the Washington Buckeyes because that'd be their third wide
Yeah.
receiver, Alec from Ohio
Yep.
State. Don't forget Curtis Samuel's there too. That'd be
Yep.
three Ohio State receivers, which I mean that might be wide receiver U at this point. I mean, so many guys. There might be double digit Ohio State wide receivers who are like legitimately good football players in the NFL. Olave, extremely solid career, of course. Came back for his senior season, didn't go as planned. They won the Rose Bowl, but they had national championships on their mind. Wasn't necessarily the case, but Washington's definitely a team that could eye a wide receiver here as they tried their best to help out Carson Wentz and revitalize this offense. But 12th pick, if you look at this Minnesota Vikings team, they are so desperate for a cornerback that I think they're willing to roll the dice here and take Derek Stingley
Hmm.
from LSU. The question is, Alec, what Derek Stingley do they get? Do they get the consensus best corner in the nation as a true freshman, or do they get the guy who's struggling to stay on the field? I mean, that's the big question here for the Vikings. They don't have a whole lot of holes on this team. Their offense is pretty good as it looks. Great running game, two great receivers, a solid offensive line. Kirk Cousins is going to be the quarterback there, and I don't see them taking somebody else. But Derek Stingley is got as high of upside as probably anybody in this draft, Alec. And I'm very
Yep.
curious to see where he goes. I think the Vikings are willing to roll the dice here, like they have on many corners in the past, and bet on the talent here at pick 12.
Yeah, I mean, Stingley is a wild card in this draft. Could go number 2 overall, technically, to Detroit. I've heard that they are considering corner. I think it would be Sauce Gardner if they were going to do it. But look, he could go there. He could go 3 to the Texans. I think that he's going to find himself anywhere in that. He could find himself anywhere in that range. Could go to the Giants. But I think that Minnesota has taken corners in the past and taken shots on corners. Look, Derek Stingley, if you get freshman year Derek Stingley, you're talking about a corner that is going to be tops in the league in very, very short amount of time. If you're getting, the last couple of years, Derek Stingley, I don't think it's a bad player, but it's also an injury prone player. I think Derek Stingley, if you get him in this NFL, get him in an NFL building, your best bet is to, if you can keep him healthy, he's going to be a phenomenal player. I do not hate this pick. I think he is way better than the 12th player in this draft if he stays healthy and shows what he can do. I mean, he's shown what he can do. It's just a matter of getting better and getting his body right. Coming up here with the Houston Texans again at pick 13. I think that the Texans are going to have to stick to football philosophy, right? Like the football philosophy is usually to get your edge rushers and tackles and get them young in the draft early. Jermaine Johnson still sitting here, the former Georgia player who had to transfer because of how much talent that Georgia had there, goes to Florida State and shows, hey, probably should have had me on the field because he was absolutely dominant for Florida State. Wins defensive player of the year in the conference, and he's just was unblockable, absolutely unblockable. I think that Jermaine Johnson is someone who looks like he's going to go top 10 in the draft. It looks like he's going to end up being a top 10 pick. We obviously have him here going 13, which seems disrespectful, but it's not. There's so many edge rushers in this class. Jermaine Johnson here, lock it in, bring him into Houston. He's not the typical edge rusher that you see in a Lovie Smith system, but I think you look at his talent and go, we'll adjust the system slightly to get him out there on that edge and just let him rush the passer on that outside track. He's just too good of a player to pass up. So I think Lovie Smith loves this, and we'll get a player in that's just going to be a dog.
Yeah, Alec, quick question for you. A little bit off topic, but I just want to hear your take on it because right now at the transfer portal, we're seeing a lot of guys, if they don't love their situation, they go somewhere else and thrive. Jermaine Johnson, one of them. Another guy, Jamison Williams, of course, was at Ohio State, transferred to Bama, became a great wide receiver there. A lot of people see that as a negative, like, oh, well, he couldn't even beat out this person. Even Joe Burrow was a good example of that too. But well, how do you think scouts see that? Are they maybe a little too negative on that? Because, I mean, Jermaine Johnson, yeah, he played for a worse team in Florida State, but he's still playing Power 5 conferences and showed you everything on tape to be successful. I just want to hear your take because people are
Yeah.
very on the board with like that kind of situation with the transfer portal.
I think it's a situation by situation basis, and if scouts are just taking it as, oh, you transferred, that's bad. Then it's honestly, you're hurting these players for no reason. I mean, look at Jermaine Johnson. He was not getting on the field at Georgia, and he goes, all right, I'm going to go to another Power 5 program and just show, it's not like Florida State didn't play anyone last year. They played some pretty high caliber teams. He goes to Florida State and says, you know what, I'm just going to show what I can do. He didn't have a lot of years of eligibility left. Obviously, the COVID years helped. I think he might have had 1 or 2 years left. I don't know, but he was a senior. He's a true senior. Was able to go down to the Senior Bowl, and I mean, I think for him, it's just you transfer not because you're anything wrong with the program at Georgia, because look at who Trayvon Walker was sitting in front of me. Let me go somewhere where I can really show what I can do. Some situations they have to players transfer and transfer down because they, maybe some trouble, some legal trouble. That's something that's going to hurt them in the draft. But if you're transferring because you want to show scouts what it is that you can do and you're not getting on the field where you are, that's not your fault. And then you transfer somewhere where you're still seeing high-level competition and dominating. I don't think that's something that should hurt players. It's helping him apparently because, a lot of teams are very interested in the overall athleticism and the dominance that he showed. And I think it should help him. He's a phenomenal player.
Yeah, I agree. And Jermaine Johnson might end up being a top 5 pick, Alec. Like, he's another guy where I don't know where he's necessarily going. Now, pick 14 with the Ravens, another player, in my opinion, who could really go all over the place due to the way teams value certain positions.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact that the Baltimore Ravens, Alec, value the interior of the offensive line. They had someone like Marshall Yanda there who was such a force for them for years and really established this run game. And now you got Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins coming back, Gus Edwards coming back. They lose Bradley Bozeman, their starting center, to the Carolina Panthers this offseason. I think they're going to go with Tyler Linderbaum here. If you're talking about pure who's the best at what they do, Tyler Linderbaum is easily one of the best players in this draft. Absolutely dominant at Iowa. Not many defensive linemen inside were able to get past him. So good in the run game. I think he'll stick at center there, just how good he was and the way he was able to command that Iowa offensive line and lead them. And not great quarterback play either, Alec. Like, they really needed Tyler Linderbaum to be that dude. And to have that safety blanket for Lamar Jackson and all the different things they do in the run game, RPO, jet sweeps, things like that, and all the dynamic weapons, you need a strong voice on the offensive line. I think Linderbaum can be that guy. And I think this would be a phenomenal pick and fit for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, no question about it. I think Linderbaum's this is probably where his draft opens up. I could see him going in this range. Could drop a little bit, but I just
going like 20, late 20s too.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
it's tough for Tyler Linderbaum because there's teams sprinkled in there that do value center, but center is unfortunately a position that gets undervalued in the league. And if you're a team that does value it highly, like the Baltimore Ravens, I believe they value that interior of the offensive line. Linderbaum makes a ton of sense. Coming up here with the Philadelphia Eagles, multiple picks in the first round, and I think they go receiver again here and go right back to where Devonta Smith was playing last year. Jameson Williams. Look, he's not going to get on the field this year until probably late in the year, but that's all right because I don't think, again, the Eagles are just adding on to what was already in a very impressive season last year, but they're not in the race to win a Super Bowl yet. They're adding pieces and why not add a guy like Jameson Williams, who Devonta Smith worked out? Bring in Jameson Williams, gives you something a little bit different than Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith, your clear route runner, dominant. You're going to get open with his feet, and then Jameson Williams is just your speed track on that 9 route, go route. I think this, not that he can't run routes, but I think it fits. Obviously, Jalen Reagor hasn't really worked out there. Could be someone who's on the move on draft day, potentially. But Jameson Williams here would be a slam dunk pick for them. They've got multiple picks in the first round. They have not been afraid to go receiver in the past multiple years in a row. Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't they again this year get that receiver and use the other pick that they have in this draft for something else?
It'd be 3 straight years, Alec, that the Eagles go wide receiver in the first round, and they still need wide receivers on this
Yep.
team. I mean, Devontae Smith definitely proved himself to be that dude and to be that number one target like he was last year. Quez Watkins, guys like that are interesting, but doesn't really excite you. Jamison Williams, when you talk about a difference maker at the wide receiver position, not sure he's a great fit with Jalen Hurts because Hurts does not have the strongest arm, but Jamison Williams is one of the fastest players, one of the most explosive players, and we're seeing guys like that, those type of athletes at the receiver position, just climbing up draft boards. And despite him being hurt, he's still, I think, going to be a lock to go in the first round. But
Yeah.
now we're going to pick 16, Alec, the New Orleans Saints, who got this pick from Philadelphia, and that probably one of
Right.
the weirdest trades I've ever seen before the draft. I don't know what the hell that was all about with those picks, but I
Yeah.
think the reason the Saints did it is because I think they're looking for a quarterback, and this is where we have the first quarterback coming off the board, and maybe they even trade up. But Malik Willis, the quarterback from Liberty, this would be a great fit, in my opinion, for Willis because Jameis Winston's there, and we know Jameis Winston's probably not the long-term answer. I don't even think the Saints are convinced he's a long-term answer there, but he is a starting quarterback, and he did look good for them last year. It doesn't force Willis to come in right away and be that guy. He can learn behind them. The Saints have a good established culture, a phenomenal defense. Michael Thomas is probably coming back. They'll have Alvin Kamara bearing any legal issues he's dealing with. So I think that this would be a good spot for Malik Willis. The Saints are a rebuilding team in a sense. He's a young quarterback. I'm sure they'd fall in love with the traits, and he doesn't need to play right away.
Right.
People say maybe he's a rich version of Taysom Hill. Well, they've had success with Taysom Hill to an extent. Malik Willis has way more upside. And I think if you're talking about a good landing spot for a quarterback, I think this is a good landing spot for Malik Willis.
Yeah, I mean Malik Willis can actually throw the ball, unlike Taysom Hill, so that makes sense. But no, I love Malik Willis. Listen, he's my number one quarterback in this class, and I think you're right. The Saints made this move. It was beneficial to both teams because the Eagles get 2 picks next year in a class that is considered a little bit more top heavy. There's going to be some studs in that class where now we have 2 picks. Either we can sit back and just take our 2 picks and get two high quality players, or we have enough ammo to go up and get a player, maybe a Bryce Young. If Jalen Hurts doesn't work out this year, maybe they go for a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud, right? But the Saints get the 2 picks this year. I think we didn't do any trades in this one, but realistically, the New Orleans Saints have put themselves in a position to move up in this draft. I don't know where that's going to be. Look out for number 7. If it's true, there's rumors that Atlanta's looking into Malik Willis. I think he's the guy they want. I think that they want to go up and get a Malik Willis. So I don't know where that ends up being. Obviously, since we're not doing trades, number 16 makes sense here. Malik Willis could find himself in this spot if New Orleans decides to sit back and Malik Willis doesn't go earlier. But he is a phenomenal player. There's just so many, and it's the same questions that came out with Josh Allen. They're not the same player, but it's the same questions. It's, hey, there's so much that needs to click, but if it does, holy cow, you found yourself a quarterback. In every regard, you found yourself an MVP caliber quarterback. You need to trust that you can develop him. That's why the Giants make some sense. If he wants to, if the Giants want to make that draft, because who did that? Who developed Josh Allen? Oh, right, Brian Daboll, who is the now head coach of the New York Giants. There's a lot of options, but I think that the Malik Willis to the New Orleans Saints makes sense there. I come up here with one of the most interesting teams in the entire draft right now is the Los Angeles Chargers, who went and spent heavy. They know that they've got the quarterback of the future, and they are not afraid. They see the talent that's in that division. The fact that they could go 4th in that division, and that's no disrespect because there's so many good teams, they were not about to let that happen. They signed a ton of players in the offseason. Now they're going to solidify that offensive line for Mr. Justin Herbert here and take Trevor Penning. Penning is an interesting take because, I think he fits better on that right side instead of the left side. And I think he's, there's a little bit of concern with Trevor Penning. Is it just, is he as good as advertised when, at UNI, obviously he was dominant, but it was UNI. I loved Spencer Brown last year. I think Spencer Brown was a better player than Trevor Penning. Spencer Brown obviously goes in the 3rd round. A lot of people think Penning's the better player, but Penning can come in, solidify that offensive line for them, give Trevor Lawrence, give Justin Herbert something to sit behind and throw the ball. And I think that it can't hurt to bring in Trevor Penning. If you fail on this pick, you fail. It's all right. But I think Trevor Penning has such a high enough upside where you love this pick and run to the board for it.
Well, the Chargers also have Rashawn Slater there. That helps at the left tackle spot. Another left tackle the Panthers decided to pass up on in the draft. Yeah. But Trevor Penning, he can slide in that right tackle spot. They addressed the defense this offseason, which was a big issue for the Chargers. They trade for Khalil Mack.
Yep.
They signed J.C. Jackson. They obviously traded for Kenneth Murray a few years ago too. So they have solidified this defense enough where they have a lot of talent there, and it shouldn't hold this team back. So the offense just make a couple tweaks, and the Chargers are an interesting team, Alec. Do they get over the fence and be a playoff team or even a Super Bowl team potentially, or do they stay in the middle of the pack like they have the last couple of years? We'll see. But the Eagles are now up on the clock again here, Alec. 2 picks instead of 3 picks. I have them going Devin Lloyd, the linebacker from Utah. You talk about a fit. I love this fit for the Eagles, and I love the value. Devin Lloyd, in my opinion, is the best linebacker or traditional linebacker in this draft. Was phenomenal for that defense with the Utes last season and the last couple seasons. Question maybe his ability to be as elite in pass coverage, but ultimately, I think he's going to be a great fit here. I think the Eagles have needed a true guy in the middle of that field for quite some time. They get a receiver with the first pick, go address your quarterback or your defense with your second first-round pick, and get a guy in Devin Lloyd who can elevate and make it easier for these front 4 players and your back end.
Yeah, I love Devin Lloyd. He's my number 1 linebacker in this class as well. There's so much length that he plays with, and he plays with it well, and it doesn't translate to lack of strength either. He's got tons of strength, plays downhill as a thumper, but also has the ability to, has shown the ability to just be a freak side to sideline linebacker. Reminds me a ton of Darius Leonard. I think that's where he probably fits best, is playing that role that Darius Leonard plays. Problem with Devin Lloyd that teams are concerned about is they weren't happy with his 40 time. I'm not concerned about it. I think he ran a 4.6, but that's fine for a linebacker. I don't see. They just thought that he looked faster on tape.
Sorry, not everyone can run a 4.4.
Right. He does look faster on tape. And Devin Lloyd's also going to be 25 by the time he plays his first snap in the NFL, I believe. I think his birthday is it's either August or September, and he'll be 25. Used his COVID years of eligibility. I mean, that's concerning, but I still think he's a plug-and-play guy. I love Devin Lloyd. I think, get Eagles bringing him in here. Maybe you only get a rookie contract out of him. Maybe he never goes and gets that big second contract because of his age, but I still think he's a phenomenal player, and he will get through that rookie contract with phenomenal play. Up here with the Saints, if they still have this pick, obviously they could be packaging these 2 picks to try and go up. But if they stick here and have this pick, I think the other thing that they're going to want to do is if we got Malik Willis, they need a receiver on the other side of Michael Thomas. And who knows if Michael Thomas will ever stay healthy throughout his career. But just kidding. Obviously, he's had tons of years of health. The last 2 years have been concerning. But if Michael Thomas comes back healthy, I know it's another bunch of size, but Drake London would be a phenomenal 2 guys on the outside that can also play on the inside that just have ridiculous size and ridiculous movement ability. I think Drake London's a phenomenal player, and bringing him into New Orleans here, look, Malik Willis, he's got the arm, right? I think if you have these 2, the next thing you do is just look for speed. You get speed in your third receiver, and now all of a sudden you got, if Malik Willis is a little bit off accuracy-wise, you got 2 guys who have ridiculous catch radius, and then you've got a guy with tons of speed on the outside potentially, which you can look at in the second or third round to try and get. And, now all of a sudden you've put together a team that can really succeed. Not to mention, if you stick with Jameis Winston here. Jameis Winston, some of his most successful years were with Mike Evans, and I think even Vincent Jackson was there
Yeah.
early in his career.
Yeah, Vince
Two
Jackson. Yeah.
really,
RIP.
really tall receivers. I think that this is a slam dunk pick for New Orleans. I would lock this in.
Yeah, Saints, I still think are definitely in the market for a receiver. Can 100% see them taking, even if they don't go quarterback. I still think they could go receiver here with one of these picks because they really need one. Whether Michael Thomas is on the field or not, Alvin Kamara can't be your best receiver, and the dude's just a running back. But yeah, Drake London, I'm a little concerned with his down the field speed. He's not the fastest guy, not a burner like that, but could be a good security blanket for whoever the quarterback is going to be for the Saints next year. They also have Marquez Callaway too, so they already have that deep ball guy, so they don't necessarily even need one.
Right.
But coming up here, pick 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers. You talk about a team that I can definitely see looking for a quarterback, and a team kind of built to have one because Mitch Trubisky is only getting paid $7 million next year. They can take on a rookie quarterback. And I think they really want Malik Willis, but I haven't taken the hometown kid here instead since Willis is off the board, going Kenny Pickett, of course, from the University of Pitt. Say what you want. The dude was a great college quarterback last season, was a Heisman finalist, and rightfully so. Made Pitt, a perennial top 25 team all season, has a lot of game experience. You talk about the guy who's most likely to play day one. It is Kenny Pickett, in my opinion. I think Willis probably needs some time. Kenny Pickett is proven. He has a lot of experience under his belt. This is where age helps him a bit. He's a fairly accurate quarterback, but not a great decision maker. And I think that's what might hold him back. And Mitch Trubisky is a better decision maker, I guess. And he most likely than not will be the day one starter there, but Pickett gives him competition, healthy competition. It'll maybe push Trubisky to be the best version of himself, or Trubisky pushes Kenny Pickett to be the best version of himself, and one of those guys is starting. They have a lot of talent on offense already, drafting Najee Harris. Deontay Johnson has developed into a legit number one receiver. Chase Claypool is a good, fun weapon they have there at 6'5", 240, and can run, past anybody. If he stops doing those damn TikToks, maybe he'll be a little more focused on the field, Alec. The defense there is elite, especially that front seven. They really are a quarterback away, I think, from being a legit Super Bowl contender, and perhaps they think Kenny Pickett, similarly to what Ryan Tannehill has been, maybe what Daniel Jones could have been if he was in a better situation. He's more of a trailer than a tractor, if you will, but maybe that's all Steelers need to win a Super Bowl or compete.
I mean, the Steelers are in a position where quarterback is the obvious need. They need to fill that quarterback position, and they haven't for the last couple of years because Big Ben was playing, but he wasn't playing at a high level. And I don't think Trubisky necessarily does that for you. Obviously, they're going to give him the chance, but I don't think that Trubisky is the go-to guy there. But this is a team that's kind of in an interesting position because I think their GM is stepping down after this draft. He's retiring or stepping down at least to take a lesser role. So he doesn't have to be afraid to take the quarterback here and worry about his job because he's letting it go. So he can take a risk on the quarterback here. And to be honest, if you need to take a quarterback, you can't be afraid. If you have a starter level grade on a player, you have to be willing to take them and and be willing to take another one and another one and another one after that. You can't be afraid because it's the position that you have to fill. I just don't know if he can play in Pittsburgh. I mean, he's never proven that he can play in the cold weather of Pittsburgh, obviously. So I don't know if he can play there. Obviously, Kenny Pickett coming from the University of Pitt. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. But I think it's a great pick. I think I don't love Pickett, but if you have a starter grade on Pickett, you have to go take him at pick 19 or 20, wherever you're drafting. I'm up here with New England Patriots. I'm going to take Andrew Booth, the cornerback out of Clemson. He is we talk about the top two guys in this class. 3 is no joke either. Andrew Booth is a phenomenal player, great run defender as well, which is something that New England has cherished. They lose J.C. Jackson. Bring in Andrew Booth here, who I think can play in that scheme and be dominant in that scheme. Type of player that I think New England tends to like. There's a huge hole there. I think this one's a cut and dry pick. If Andrew Booth gets to pick 21, I don't see how he doesn't become the pick at 21. fits great, I think, and the needs there. I think that Andrew Booth would be a great pick here for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, and he also comes from Clemson. While they had been bad the last couple of years, Booth was a part of some of those national championship type of teams there. So he has big game experience. He's got the size, length, athleticism, and his ability to defend the run. Like you said, Alec, is what New England looks for in their cornerbacks. Prototypical Bill Belichick guy. I like this fit a lot for the Patriots and for Andrew Booth. Now, pick number 22 is the Green Bay Packers. Of course, this pick was owned by the Las Vegas Raiders, but they got the Raiders' first and second round picks this year in exchange for Davante Adams. I don't think there's a wide receiver here, Alec, that's going to fill the void of Davante Adams per se, but I do think this is going to break the streak of the Packers avoiding bob and weaving, not taking a wide receiver in the first round. I think it's going to be Treylon Burks from Arkansas. You talk about the upside here, Alec. He's got DK Metcalf type of size, maybe not the same type of athleticism. Didn't run great in the 40 as people maybe thought, but dude's got great hands. He's an absolute monster going down the field, and they need explosive plays. I mean, Davante Adams, of course, does literally everything, but this Packers team also losing Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Who's going to make plays out there in the pass game? They really don't have much of anyone outside of maybe their running backs, but Treylon Burks, huge upside, huge catch radius. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to want that in a wide receiver. And for this Packers offense to go, they need someone out there on the outside making plays. And I think Burks will be a huge beneficiary to the throws that Aaron Rodgers is going to make to him.
Yeah, I mean, Burks obviously doesn't run the time that we wanted him to run, but on tape, I mean, he does separate, not at an elite level, but he does separate. And I think that, you look at his tape and you go, well, there's no such thing as a 50-50 ball with this guy. I mean, it's really more like 90-10. He's got like 11-inch hands. I think that, I'm not concerned about what Burks will be able to do in the league, and put him with Aaron Rodgers, and that's going to be fun to watch, to say the least. I think that that's easily a pick that the Packers will run up to the board for. Obviously, we had a bunch of the top wide receivers off the board already, and he's in that conversation. We talk about the unpredictability of this draft. The wide receiver position is one of those positions that we don't know where these guys are going to go. It's going to be based on team philosophy and what they see in their wide receivers. Tons of different guys, but it'll be interesting to see what the Packers value here. I think Treylon Burks fits with what they usually value in the receiver position, though. Coming up here with the Arizona Cardinals. Look, a lot of stuff going on with the Arizona Cardinals this offseason. Does Kyler want to be there? He said he does. He's deleted his Instagram posts. His agents come out and given some weird comments about whether he wants to be there or not. The Cardinals have said, we will not trade him. He's going to be here. He's our quarterback of the future. And I think that he should be. He's shown a ton of talent there. And I think as long as he wants to play there, it would be beneficial for them to keep him happy. And I think the best way to do that is, they've got receivers there, although they did just lose Christian Kirk, but solidify this defense so that the defense can compete when he doesn't, I think, or when he has some tougher days. And Trent McDuffie, let's bring him in here to play corner. I think Marco Wilson played well last year. Byron Murphy there. They've got some good safeties. They've got some really talented young linebackers. Got some guys who can rush the passer. Bring in Trent McDuffie here, and then just plug him in and play him. He is a phenomenal player. Another corner in this class and you're going to see them start to come off the board real quick here. A lot of them, because there is so many first-round caliber corners that are just, stuck in this draft of there's like 8 or 9 guys that could end up going first round. I think McDuffie fits with the Cardinals. I like this pick. And so kind of gives them a really good defense going into next year.
I think the Cardinals, honestly, Alec, have one of the most talented teams in the league. There really isn't a position that they have that's or a position group, I should say, that's just terrible. They're good everywhere. And the problem with this team is that Kyler Murray has not been consistent for 17 games, throughout an entire season. And trading him is definitely stupid, Alec. When you have a guy who's a top talent like that, you don't trade him, you figure it out. And I think that's what the Cardinals are going to do. I think that's what Kyler Murray wants to do. So like you said, just improve this defense. This is like the third defensive back from Washington that I think they have. So clearly there's a niche here for the
Yeah.
Cardinals, but Trent McDuffie, physical corner, just like Byron Murphy is, Buda Baker at the safety position. Definitely like the fit for the Cardinals. Now looking at the pick 24 here for the Dallas Cowboys, this team loves drafting their offensive linemen, Alec. We know that. This is where they get their bread and butter from. I think it'll be the same thing here, taking Kenyon Green, the interior offensive lineman from Texas A&M, so from College Station, hometown person, if you will, for the Cowboys. Zach Martin, still a really good guard, but getting up there in age. Of course, he's not going to be there forever. So Kenyon Green has a lot of big game experience, played really well, battle tested in the SEC. And for this Cowboys team, they also lose La'el Collins. So this offensive line is already hurting. They're not scared to go up and get a guard, in my opinion. I think that this is a team that, again, has shown that they will attack the offensive line. I think Tyler Linderbaum would be a great pick here for them, and he could be there. But in this draft, we don't have him there. So I got him taking Green instead to help out the running backs, help out Dak Prescott, and for the Cowboys to maybe get over the hump, but probably not because they're the Dallas Cowboys, Alec.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Dallas Cowboys can go a lot of direction with this. It's a team that really should be competing for at least NFC championships, but they've fallen short years and years in a row here. Playing in the NFC East, you should have taken advantage of that. Well, the NFC East was weak. It's getting stronger. I wouldn't say it's necessarily strong yet, but it's getting there. I mean, the Eagles gave you some problems last year, and they shouldn't have. They were one of the teams that we thought would be drafting number 1 overall, and they went 9-7. That's scary because now they're going to add a bunch of talent to this team. You know, you got to be concerned if you're Dallas as to how you haven't taken advantage of this and really just gotten yourself at least a Super Bowl appearance or an NFC Championship appearance. Nothing. But Kenyon Green, bring him in to protect Dak Prescott. CeeDee Lamb's got the keys, obviously, going into this year. You're going to give CeeDee Lamb the keys to be the number 1 guy. I think this is a smart pick, and they got to continue to add smart picks. They obviously did wonders to that defense last year. You know, Micah Parsons is going to be a defensive player of the year type player for forever. But they did wonders to that defense. Just fix up the offense here and maybe add some defensive players later in this draft. I'm going to go right back to Washington and take Kyler Gordon for the Buffalo Bills. Not necessarily a need, but what is a need on this team? I mean, they are a really, really competitive football team. And I figure, hey, just add a guy to this cornerback room. I would say that, you know, if he's your third corner, then you feel like you have an A+ type cornerback room. If he's your number 2 corner and you got to move someone, I still think this is a phenomenal cornerback group. Tre'Davious White's obviously there, who's one of the best corners in the league. Bringing Kyler Gordon here, I think it's just the rich get richer type pick. You know, the Buffalo Bills are in line to be a Super Bowl contender next year, and it can't hurt to have another corner. It can't. There's so many teams go now dime or nickel or dime as their base defense. It can't hurt to bring in a Kyler Gordon here and just have him as your second, third corner in this on this team. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah, like you said, Alec, the Bills don't really have a weakness, and that I think he's going to learn a lot from not only Tre'Davious White, but they also have Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde there too, 2 all-pro type of safeties. This is a really good Buffalo Bills defense that ranked number 1 in a lot of different categories last year. And oh yeah, Josh Allen is also the quarterback for this team. So
Yep.
yeah, Bills. This is a situation where they really can go best player available, and it's not going to hurt them. I would love to see him get a running back though, but I don't think it'll happen at pick 25.
I think. Just to add to it real quick, I think that their biggest needs are interior offensive line and running back. I don't think that they necessarily need a wide receiver. You know, maybe a slot guy, maybe later in the draft. But
I mean, seeing Gabriel Davis too do what he did last year.
That's right. You got Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. A slot receiver is something you could add. Running back is a huge need. I think that's where, if I'm in the Bills in the second round, I am going all out to get a Kenneth Walker or a Breece Hall, but it just doesn't make sense in the first round. And this could be like a Zion Johnson where he ends up, plug him in. But the Bills have found these offensive linemen late in drafts who have just been excellent for them. So I think that they just go with a top tier corner and figure out the rest later.
Yep. And then at pick 26 here, this was the regular season champions of the AFC, and that was the Tennessee Titans. Give them credit. That ragtag team bunch, they had a great regular season, and, they couldn't really get it done in the playoffs, but, give them credit. They did give the Bengals a run for their money, but I have them taking Bernhard Raimann, the offensive tackle from Central Michigan, actually from Austria, Alec,
Yep.
a European player here, but he's very raw, of course. Was playing European football, I guess. I don't know if it's different at all. Overseas. I guess we could ask our buddy Lorenz, he would know. But
Yes.
but really was dominant, of course, at Central Michigan. Wasn't like he had a whole lot of competition. Tennessee Titans, their offensive line looking a little shaky. They lost Jack Conklin a few years ago. Taylor Lewan does not look like the same player as he's been, and he could potentially be a guy who they decide to get rid of. So whether you play him on the right side, Raymond, or you eventually move him over to the left side, we'll see. But the Tennessee Titans, this is a team that they could go quarterback too, Alec. It wouldn't shock me at all. But
yeah,
I think with Tannehill's contract, they will probably roll another year with him. I don't really see a rush to go quarterback here, but they could. You never know. Maybe in the second or third round, I can see him getting a Matt Corral or a Desmond Ridder if they're available. But I think for now, Tannehill will be the guy. They'll continue, of course, to build the game around Derrick Henry, and then as well as getting the ball out to their receivers as well, such as A.J. Brown. But Raymond's going to be my pick here. Get a developmental guy who can maybe become something for them.
Yeah, I think, look, it's when you're drafting here at the back end of the first round, if you see a tackle that you think could be a high-level tackle in this league, you're going to go take him. Bernhard Raimann's got a lot of a lot of mixed opinions, but the fact of the matter is he's raw. And if you can develop him and turn him into what, he's one of X amount of people in the world that fit his body type and skill set. So if you can develop him into a starting tackle, this is not a reach at all. And I think you turn that card in. 27 here, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are returning Tom Brady. He retired and then came back. Look, I think that there's not a lot of needs here. Obviously, quarterback position is something you're going to need because you can't imagine he has too many years left in him, if not more than one, or if more than one. You can't imagine it's too many years. But I think that you sit here and take the Georgia interior defensive lineman here, Devontae Wyatt, who to me is, he put on a show at the Combine as well. These Georgia guys just freaked out at the Combine, but bring him in. Look, you didn't bring back Ndamukong Suh. This kid can plug into that role and just kind of be a space eater for you. He's not as big as Jordan Davis, but he's got a lot of pass rushing ability. He's going to be able to get to the quarterback from the interior. He's also going to be able to stop the run. I think this kid is going to find himself in the first round because there's not many interior defensive linemen in this draft. The next one is Travis Jones. And then, there's a couple more, but it drops off fast. So I think this kid's going to find himself in the first round because he's borderline first round talent. And you just look at the position availability later on. If you need one, go get one. I think Tampa Bay runs to the clock, runs to the podium, takes Devontae Wyatt here.
And something that the Tampa Bay Bucks, even well before Brady got there, what they stamped themselves on was having a great, strong run defense. And they kind of strayed away from that last year, partly due to injury, but they just weren't as same dominant defense. Getting a guy like Devontae Wyatt, who I'm sure will buy into the program right away. He is a winning player, as we saw, a guy who sacrificed his own stats, if you will, like all these Georgia defensive players have. For the greater good to win a championship. That's the type of sacrifice that the Bucks need if they want to get back to the Super Bowl. And I think Devontae Wyatt, A, fills a need that they have, and B, is also a great fit. Now, going back to the Green Bay Packers, of course, back on the board here again at pick 28, I have them going George Karlaftis, the edge rusher from Purdue. Definitely some question marks about him in terms of, the elite downfield speed he has, how twitchy is he and stuff. Look, if you watched him at Purdue, this guy was a hell of a football player. And this actually feels sometimes maybe even low if you talk about production. He was one of the most productive players in all of college football last year. And you can definitely make a case for him going higher. So I think this could potentially be a nice fit. I think it's someone like a Rashawn Gary, who no one really knew what position he'd be in the NFL. But he's ended up being pretty good for Green Bay. George Karlaftis, not the same player, but a guy who maybe can play a few positions. I trust Green Bay's, defense to put him in those positions to succeed. They already have guys there in place, so they can play him to his strengths, and he could be a true power rusher who can make a difference both in the run game and in the pass game for a team in the Packers, who, of course, is trying to win now.
Yeah. Listen, George Karlaftis getting to pick 28 seems like a crime, but it might happen on draft day. It might, because there's so many edge rushers, and it's going to be pick your poison. Which one do you want? And George Karlaftis is a freak of a player. I don't like the question marks on his game when people question, oh, is he bendy enough? Is he this? Is that? Look at the tape. He is.
He's
He is.
productive.
Yeah, he's productive. He's going to get to the passer, but it might happen on draft day. And this is a predictive draft. This is a predictive mock draft. So, George Karlaftis here, Green Bay put him on the other side. They obviously lose to Darius Smith. So, putting him on the other side, I believe they lost to Darius Smith. I know that they had trouble re-signing him, but put him on the other side of Rashawn Gary, who had a great year last year. And speaking of Rashawn Gary, I'm going to go back to his alma mater here with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to take Dax Hill. I think that, look, the Chiefs just gave money to Justin Reed. They obviously lose Tyrann Mathieu, but they need to play. They play two guys in that back end. And I think Dax Hill, freak athlete, who can kind of play the role that Tyrann Smith was playing for them, kind of kick into that slot corner type role / safety role, and just gives you that freak of nature athlete that now you put him with Justin Reed. Now you don't have any concerns here in that secondary or that safety spot. Got a couple of good corners. Obviously would ideally add another one at some point here, but young linebacker. You got decent players on the defensive line, obviously with Chris Jones being a phenomenal player and Frank Clark having a down year last year, but someone who you can hopefully rely on bouncing back. I think Dax Hill makes a lot of sense for them. Just add speed to that defense. There's a need there at receiver, yes, but a lot of receivers came off the board already. I think that we're going to take Dax Hill here.
Yeah, I mean, Tyrann Mathieu, I can't overstate how much of a loss that is, in my opinion, because this dude was absolutely phenomenal for the Chiefs in their Super Bowl runs, their AFC Championship game runs, and I think he's a real leader, and Dax Hill could potentially earn that right.
Right.
They have a huge hole right now at safety, and they need a leader in that back end, and I think Dax Hill could potentially fill that. And seeing how competitive the Chiefs are not going to run away with this division anymore, in my opinion. Maybe they do, and they prove me completely wrong, but it's not going to be as easy as it has in years past. So
it's nice to have Patrick Mahomes on your team.
Yeah, he's really the saving grace. That could be the ultimate neutralizer for all these up-and-coming AFC West teams. And due to the trade, of course, the pick that you just made, Alec, was owned by the Dolphins. That's what they got for Tyreek Hill. Now it's the Kansas City Chiefs' actual pick at pick 30, back-to-back here. And maybe it's the Penn State kicking into me, but I still think that this team really needs a wide receiver. And I'm going to go Jahan Dotson here from Happy Valley. You talk about a guy who can do everything on the field. That's Jahan. He's not that big, but he's really athletic. He's got great downfield speed. He can run almost any route. Phenomenal hands. I think the most impressive thing with Jahan Dotson is his ability to adjust to the football, whether it's his body, his hands. He just has great football instincts. And that's something we saw Tyreek Hill develop as he went on with the Chiefs. Of course, Travis Kelce has phenomenal instincts. Mahomes needs a while, and I don't think it's going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm not 100% sold that he's going to be that target monster. They're missing a target monster in Tyreek Hill. It was really a two-receiver offense with a bunch of guys trickled in here and there. Dotson was a high-volume guy at Penn State, and to have an actual quarterback throwing the ball, not Sean Clifford, I think we're going to see maybe another level unlocked in Dotson's game, and I think he's not Tyreek Hill. I'm not going to say that. I don't want to put him on that pedestal. That's not fair. But Jahan Dotson's a phenomenal player. I could see him going second round, maybe sneaking into the first tier for a team in the Chiefs. We saw a couple years ago how Patrick Mahomes was like, I want Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and they ended up drafting him. I can see him again being like, get me a wide receiver, and maybe Dotson can be that guy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Jahan Dotson is someone who you're talking about a guy who put up numbers in college with very little quarterback talent, and a lot of teams saying, I know that you're going to get the ball. Here's all of our coverage. And he still got the ball. So when you talk about that aspect of Jahan Dotson, it's very hard to knock his game. The one knock I see on him is, how does he fit with Juju Smith-Schuster? But that being said, I think Jahan Dotson probably gives you a little more upside than Juju Smith-Schuster. So I don't think that this is a bad pick, to say the least. I mean, if the Chiefs have fallen in love with Jahan Dotson, and rightfully so, because he's got a lot to love, makes a ton of sense. Coming up here with the Cincinnati Bengals, who finally fixed their offensive line. Joe Burrow must be sleeping very well at night, knowing that they put a lot into that offensive line, and not that it's perfect, but it's good enough. It's good enough. Their receivers are great. Joe Mixon's a really good talent at running back. Tight end's a concern. I don't see a tight end sneaking into the first round, obviously with losing Uzuma. Defensively, corners obviously a concern here. You could go corner, but a lot of my top corners have come off the board at this point. I'm going to go Boye Mafe, who put on a show for Minnesota and really produced well there and showed tons of athleticism. Put him on this defense, on the other side of Trey Hendrickson, who was great last year. I'm sorry. Is it Trey Hendrickson went over there, right? Yeah. Yep. He put on a show for them last year. They've got some guys on the interior like Ogunjobi and BJ Hill. They might have lost Ogunjobi to the Bears, I think, but BJ Hill was phenomenal last year. Put another edge rusher out here, and now you all of a sudden are looking at not a team that surprised us last year, a team that's like, okay, now we're expecting them to do it again because they fixed the offensive line and they have some edge rushers. I mean, it's a lot to like here, what's going on in Cincinnati. And I think that now all of a sudden you're talking about one of the most complete teams in the league if they get another edge rusher here. Not to mention they had drafted one last year in the second round in the Texas edge rusher, whose name's eluding me right now. But now you've got a rotation going. I think that's great things for Cincinnati. If one gets injured again, you've got some ways to go. So Boye Mafe is the pick here for Cincinnati.
And like we said, Alec, there's no such thing as too many pass rushers in a defense anymore. I think a lot of teams now are valuing depth very much so on the defensive line, corners even too. Just having a lot of guys that can come in and be effective players. Cincinnati Bengals are no different. And it's crazy what a quarterback can do, Alec, right? Like they get Joe Burrow and all of a sudden now the Bengals are spending in free agency, which they've never done.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. And I do like that attitude for them being like, you know what? Yes, we went to the Super Bowl. We had a phenomenal season, but we got to keep doing it because, I like the sense of urgency. I think it's good for that organization that struggled for so many years, but never thought I'd say this, Alec, but the Detroit Lions have the 32nd pick in the NFL draft. No, it's not because they won the Super Bowl, but of course, because they traded Matthew Stafford, who ended up winning the Super Bowl. And Detroit Lions fans, they took it as a win for them. So whatever makes them happy, anything they can cheer for, good for them, I guess. But I'm going to have them taking the Kobe Dean, the linebacker from Georgia. Smart. That's going to be two defensive players from Georgia. I don't think Dan Campbell cares, to be honest, because he needs to bring winners into this organization. Dean, another guy who people are a little all over about, not the biggest guy, not super athletic per se, but he's a really productive player. He was the voice of that Georgia defense, a big reason why they were as great as they were. I don't remember if he won linebacker of the year in college football. He might have.
I think Devin Lloyd had.
Lloyd might have won it. I think he was like one of the finalists though. Yeah. Because he was absolutely great for Georgia this season. People argue the heart and soul of that team. The Lions also need linebackers. They don't really have any right now. So plug him in. I think he's a day one starter for a team that is, of course, is struggling. They could go cornerback here, Alec. That's definitely likely. But I think getting a guy in the Kobe Dean at the 32nd pick is a really good value.
Yeah, I think, Dean might see his name dropping a little bit, and that's, partly because he's a little bit undersized for the position, but talk about instincts, he's got them. I think that Detroit here, I don't think that there's any concern for them if they take Nakobe Dean. It's a position of need. That being said, Nakobe Dean could find himself falling out of the first round. It's great player, but there's definitely concerns on, was he good for Georgia, or was he, because it was Georgia, or was he good because he was good? And I think he's a good player, but they're rightful questions to ask. You got to watch the film to find out. I think second round is really where I would take him. But that being said, he might find himself, squeaking into the first. He might find himself falling out of the first and into maybe the late second. You never know with, Nakobe Dean. But Detroit finishes up that round. I think that's a really solid pick.
Yeah. And that's a good question. It's like a fun science experiment, Alec. How do these Georgia players do? Now they're not together anymore on a super stacked Georgia defense. But that's gonna wrap up our 32 picks. Alec, I think a question or two we can maybe ask before the draft. Maybe the first one I'll ask. Of course, we did no trades in this mock draft. Who are some teams you can see maybe moving up or down? And if so, what kind of players do you think that they're targeting?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that jumps out the gate for me is when New Orleans made that trade to get 2 first-round picks. It looked like that was a type of trade that you make to package and move. And I think, hey, there's a need there at quarterback. They could package and move up, right? I think that the other spots that really look like, I think every team from 5 to 9 could be looking to trade back. There's just not going to be a ton of teams that want to go up and get the quarterback, but Pittsburgh is a huge possibility. Obviously, New Orleans, I'd say even, you could look at a team potentially like, maybe even you could see a team like the Packers trying to get up for the top tier wide receiver. Maybe not. Obviously, they're not going up for the quarterback, but they could go up for and say, hey, instead of getting a Treylon Burks, let's go get a Garrett Wilson. It's all up in the air, but those are the teams that really stand out to me just because they have the draft capital to do it.
Yeah, and I actually just got a report that a lot of teams are calling the Seahawks about what they're going to do at number 9, and that
Makes
the
sense.
Seahawks might be trying to trade back potentially as well and acquire draft capital. We'll see. I don't know. I think I can even see them moving up potentially, try to get someone. I don't know, because they like I said, they need an offensive tackle and they need a corner, and we have Gardner and Charles Cross, guys like that, not making it to 9. So who knows? Maybe they make a move. Really interesting. A lot of questions, but before we wrap it up here, Alec, any hot takes you have potentially? Any bold predictions you have for this draft?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're going to see, I saw this the other day. There's an over-under quarterbacks taken in the first round. If you're a betting person, I'm particularly not a betting person, but I saw this and it was 3.5. 3.5 it seems like a large number in this class. That being said, Malik Willis is going to go in this first round. Kenny Pickett is going to go in this first round. Don't be shocked if you see a guy like Desmond Ridder sneak himself into the first round, late first round. I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Corral finds himself in the first round either. That's already 4. Sam Howell has a chance. And then a guy like Carson Strong has a chance. All 3 of those guys. 3.5 seems like a lot, but there are 5 guys who could find themselves in that first round range. I would still take the under, but that is I guess that's why they do that. That's why they get paid to do that. Because at first I was like, no, it's an under, but there could be 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round. And I'm not saying I would want there to be, but there in theory could be.
And I think a team to look out for could be the Detroit Lions at pick 32. Maybe they take a quarterback there, get one for a significantly cheaper deal, because I doubt they would take one with the second pick, of course. Or maybe they move up. Maybe there's a team or so. I'm just kind of looking at the back end of this first round here. We talked about the Saints potentially as a team looking to get a quarterback. Tennessee's one. Maybe the Vikings do something crazy. I don't know. Like they did target. Yeah, I mean, Vikings targeted Justin Fields last year. That was a
Right.
legit rumor. That was confirmed. So I think the quarterbacks like last year way better, but it was kind of predictable. We knew the first 3 picks were going to be the quarterbacks.
Right.
Bears moving up wasn't that shocking. The Patriots, of course, getting Mac Jones, that seemed like, a great fit on paper. So
Right.
wasn't that shocking, but really curious to see where these other guys go. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up here, Alec. Any final words you have to say before we head out?
Hey, no, tons of fun. I'm excited for tomorrow.
Yeah, same here. Again, appreciate you guys tuning in. If you tuned in live, if not, this will be up, for about, 24 hours or so. So feel free to tune in, whatever. But that's going to wrap it up. Hopefully we can put some more content out there in the future. We'll see. But appreciate you all tuning in, and hopefully your team doesn't mess up the draft.
Hopefully.